B&M are renowned for making some of the best roller coasters in the world. In fact, they are my favourite roller coaster manufacturer. That's why today I'm going to be ranking all 13 B&M roller coasters that I have ridden. And if you go on to like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the ride. Without further ado, let's get into ranking all of the B&M roller coasters that I have ridden. So first on my list we have Mandrill Mayhem, a B&M shuttle launch wing coaster that opened at Chessington World of Adventures in 2023. Now this is the only B&M coaster that I have ridden that I can say I don't really like. And that's not a reflection on the coaster itself, it's the way it rides. Based on the weight distribution of the trains, it can be rather bumpy, and that makes a really uncomfortable ride experience. However, this coaster has some really fun elements to it. I love the helix, it's a lot bigger in real life than it looks in photos. I love the inline twist over the entrance to the world of Jumanji, and I also love the Mandrill designed trains. They look absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately the ride experience is why this places last on my list. So next on my list we have Galactica. This is a B&M flying coaster that opened at Alton Towers in 2002. Now I have a soft spot for Galactica because it was one of the first roller coasters that I actually rode at the Alton Towers Resort. However, I find the vest restraints on this roller coaster to be really uncomfortable, especially when you're put into the flying position. I'm also not a huge fan of flying roller coasters in general, but saying that, this roller coaster has a fantastic, unique layout. I love the way it interacts with the terrain and the way that it flips you on your back and interacts with the path below it. Because of the issues that I've mentioned, I can either have a good ride on Galactica or a bad ride on Galactica. There is no in between. But despite its flaws, it's definitely a unique roller coaster, and that's why it ranks where it does. So next we have Black Mamba. This is the first B&M inverted roller coaster on my list that opened at Phantasialand in 2006. Now Black Mamba starts off so strong. It has a fantastic drop, a loop that wraps around a path, a 0G roll and a junior Immelman, but sadly after the first half it just falls off a cliff. Whilst the first half is filled with intensity, the second half is full of twists and turns that in my opinion don't add anything to the ride. In my opinion, the only thing that the twists and turns add is some great interaction with the terrain that you're weaving in and out of, but sadly that's it. Now don't get me wrong, this coaster has some fantastic theming, but sadly that's why it places towards the bottom of my list. So next we have Dragon Khan. This is a B&M sit-down roller coaster that opened at Porta Ventura World in Spain in 1995. Now this coaster has some fantastic moments. I love the interaction with Shambhala on the top of the lift hill, I love the first loop, I love the 0G roll that this coaster has and also the interlocking corkscrews. However, this coaster can be quite uncomfortable if you sit on the end seats. I definitely think this coaster would be dramatically improved with new trains and a retrack, and I definitely think that's on the cards for this coaster in the future. That being said though, this coaster is an intensity machine, and that's why it's actually one of my favourite B&Ms, but I can't place it any higher due to the uncomfortable ride experience. So next on my list we have Demonan. This is a B&M floorless coaster that opened at Tivoli Gardens in 2004. Now Demonan has got to be one of the smallest B&Ms that I have ever ridden. The footprint for this coaster is so small. I really like this coaster because on the top of the lift hill you get some great views of Copenhagen before you dive down into the first loop. Then you go into an Immelman and a 0G roll. This coaster offers some great moments of intensity while having a really well paced layout. Now I understand you can't really do much with a small roller coaster, but I wish this was just a bit taller and just a bit longer, then maybe it would rank a little bit higher on my list. So next we have Oblivion. This is the original dive coaster that opened at Alton Towers in 1998. Now because of its 20-second ride time, there's not much I can really say about Oblivion, but what I can say is that drop is amazing. It's one of the best drops, if not the best drop, I have ever done on a roller coaster. This is going to sound really weird, but I also love the lift hill for Oblivion and the turnaround section before you enter the drop itself. You get some great views of Alton, and the anticipation that the lift hill builds up is absolutely fantastic. Now, one other impressive thing to mention about Oblivion is it's actually one of the tallest roller coasters in the UK, standing at an impressive 180 feet, but only 65 feet of it is visible above ground, and that's why Oblivion ranks where it does. So next we have Nemesis Inferno. This is another B&M inverted roller coaster that opened at Thorpe Park in 2003. Now, in my opinion, Nemesis Inferno is the UK's answer to Batman the Ride. It has that classic loop that can be found on many B&M inverted roller coasters across the world, a zero-G roll and interlocking corkscrews. Now, in my opinion, apart from the intensity, this is all that Nemesis Inferno has to offer. It is quite a short ride. Now, the intensity is really the thing that makes Nemesis Inferno for me. I love a back row ride on Nemesis Inferno because all of the inversions are so intense, particularly at the end of the day. Now, this roller coaster is often unfairly compared to Nemesis at Alton Towers, and I get it, it's got Nemesis in the name, but if you take it on its own merits, it's actually a really good roller coaster, and that's why it ranks where it does. So next, we have Baron Axanaktanakanen, or Baron 1898. This is a B&M dive coaster that opened at Efteling in 2015. So this coaster is absolutely beautiful. I love the area around Baron and the way that Baron is themed. The lift hill has a unique support structure that's themed to a mine. In fact, this coaster itself is themed to a Baron that sends you into a mine, and I absolutely love it. Now, this is one of B&M's mini dive coasters, I'm going to call it, as it only has 2 rows, but that's not to take away from an absolutely fantastic ride experience. Now, because this coaster is quite small, it offers a really intense experience actually. The inversions are taken with a really good speed. First, you have that classic B&M dive coaster drop that goes into an Immelman, a zero-G roll, and a turnaround before you go into the break room. Whilst this is quite short, again it's the intensity in the inversions that really makes this coaster for me, and that's why it ranks where it does. So next, we have the Swarm. This is a B&M wing coaster that opened at Thorpe Park in 2012. Now, I actually got to ride the Swarm back in its opening year in 2012, and it was so graceful. Now, comparing that to the ride I had the other day on it, it was so intense, and that's why I love the Swarm. It is an intensity machine. I love the dive drop that builds up the speed for the roller coaster. I love the zero-G roll. I think it's a great inversion, and actually my favourite inversion on the ride. I love the incline loop, and also the corkscrew that interacts with the incline loop. And one thing I love about this coaster as well is the inline twist that goes above the station. I love hearing the screams from people as the coaster traverses that as you wait for the coaster actually in the station itself. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And the Swarm has some amazing theming. The whole area is themed to the Swarm Island, an island that's been ravished by the apocalypse, and it's portrayed so well. And the story is so clear with posters around the area now as well, and also a soundtrack that further explains it. It's a great roller coaster, and that's why it ranks where it does. So next, we have our second to last B&M inverted roller coaster on this list, Aziris. This opened at Park Asterix in 2012. Aziris has some great elements. I love the drop on this roller coaster actually. I think it's really forceful in the back. I love the dive loop on this coaster. I also love the vertical loop that's sort of above the entrance. It's a great centerpiece for this roller coaster. It also features 2 zero-G rolls for some reason and an Immelman. This coaster dies off towards the end in my opinion with the twists and turns. It sort of has the same issues I have with Black Mamba if I'm being honest. The only thing that saves this roller coaster for me is the first half is paced really well, and some of the inversions feel one-to-one to Nemesis. Now, don't get me wrong, this coaster has some amazing theming as well, but I can't place it any higher due to the dead spots at the end of the roller coaster itself. I just feel like it goes on for a bit too long, unfortunately. So breaking into my top 3 then, we have Valkyria. This is a B&M dive coaster that opened at Leesburg in 2018. So where do I even start with Valkyria then? Let's start with the drop. Now this drop, in my opinion, is somewhat comparable to Oblivion. Now it doesn't have a lot of the force that Oblivion's drop has, but it definitely has the speed. Now this coaster isn't particularly intense. In fact, in some parts it is a little bit forceless, but that's what I like about this coaster. I love the gracefulness of it, the way that it takes its Immelman, the way that it takes that 0G roll, and also some of the turnaround sections this coaster has. It's just so graceful, and you get some great views of the city of Gothenburg from the top of the lift hill as well. Now unfortunately this coaster does feature vest restraints, but they're not as restrictive as something like you'd find on the Swarm or Galactica for instance. They move throughout the ride experience, but that's why this coaster doesn't rank over something like my next one. So at number 2 on my list, we have the beast, Nemesis. This is a B&M inverted roller coaster that opened at Alton Towers in 1994. Nemesis has got to be one of the best paced roller coasters I have ever ridden. I absolutely love the layout, and this is the definition of a terrain coaster. I love the pits that Nemesis is dug into, and the way that the coaster interacts with it is absolutely incredible, and something that Alton Towers could have only pulled off. Nemesis has some amazing inversions. You are thrown into the first corkscrew at the start of the ride. I love the helix, the 0G roll. I also really like the loop and the stall turn. This coaster has some fantastic elements, and obviously alongside that iconic Nemesis soundtrack made by Graham Smart. I also love the theme around Nemesis, this alien creature. It's got a really unique theme around it. Nemesis has also got to be one of the most intense roller coasters I have ever ridden, and that is fantastic. This coaster is a package coaster, and I can't wait for it to come back in 2024. So at number 1, we have Shambhala. This is a B&M hypercoaster that opened at Porta Ventura World in Spain back in 2012. If you like airtime, Shambhala is definitely the roller coaster for you. You get some amazing airtime over those camelback hills. In fact, my favourite moment of airtime on Shambhala is as you come out of the ampersand element and you go over that small bunny hill. It offers some fantastic ejector airtime that lasts for a couple of seconds. It's absolutely amazing. That's not to mention the drop that Shambhala has as well. It has an impressive 255 foot drop, which you really feel on the back. You get some great whip on the back on this roller coaster, and on the back it's actually quite intense, but the front is definitely where it's at for me with Shambhala. Now, whilst the theming isn't anything particularly amazing on this coaster, it really doesn't need it. Shambhala is one of those coasters that speaks for itself, and that's why it's definitely my favourite B&M. Now that was me ranking all of the B&M roller coasters that I've ridden. Like I said at the start of this video, I absolutely love B&M roller coasters, and I can't wait to ride more in the future. But if you got your own, please do leave them down in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the ride. Guys, I have been Ryan from my coaster, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.